Welcome to the Digital Dose, the podcast where healthcare technology meets real human stories. I'm your host, Zelcha Emmanuel, and today's conversation is one that I've been looking forward to. My guest, Debbie Compton, a certified caregiver consultant, best-selling author of 9 books, and a founder of The Purple Vine. Debbie has been where so many families find themselves, simultaneously navigating a career while caring for 3 loved ones with different forms of dementia. Out of all of that experience, she's built a mission to help caregivers reduce stress, block burnout, and yes, learn to laugh again. Let's get into it. Debbie, welcome to the Digital Dose.
Thank you so much for having me, Zelcha. I'm happy to be here.
And I am happy to have you. Well, Debbie, most people hit a wall and step back. You step forward into advocacy. What was the moment of your breaking point that made you say, I have to do something about this?
Well, it was actually a hospice nurse that changed the trajectory of my life. I was caring for my mother-in-law who was in our guest room. She was passing of Alzheimer's, and the hospice nurse came in, saw the bed alert system that we had created and the door safety system, and she said, "Where did you read about that?" And I kinda laughed. It's like, I didn't read about it anywhere. The stuff on the market did not work for us, so I had to create something that did. And she looked at it and she said those words. She said, "This would really help other caregivers. If they knew about this, it would help them so much." And I was just shocked. I couldn't believe it because I thought I'm the only one who doesn't have it all figured out. I'm the only one who doesn't know what's going on. It's just me here alone on my little crazy island, and that wasn't true at all. And I know now how much that is not true, but I also know that caregivers feel that way. And that's the way you feel because you're dealing with such bizarre behavior nobody can understand. And it doesn't make any sense. And so when she said that, it was just a huge awakening for me. And so I'm a Christian, and so I prayed about it. And that night I went to sleep and it just kept rolling in my mind. Other caregivers need to know this. So when I woke up in the morning, I thought, okay, this is why I went through this. I cared for my dad with Parkinson's for 8 years, cared for my mother in law with Alzheimer's for 7.5 years, and I cared for my mom with vascular dementia and was still caring for her up until 2 years ago. But she had vascular dementia for 21. So it was a very long journey for her. She was the first one diagnosed, the last one to pass away. But when I realized that this would help other people, that's when I knew that's why I went through this. And this is now my calling to help other people. And so I formed my company, The Purple Vine, and I started writing my first book after my mother in law passed away. And my dad had already passed away. And so I wrote it's Caregiving, How to Hold On While Letting Go, because I share in it the lessons that I learned along the way that would have been so helpful had I known sooner, and the questions to ask that I didn't even know, because when you're in the thick of it, you don't even know what's a right question to ask when you're talking to the doctor or when you're talking to a facility or anything. And so I shared all that information, things that I learned in the hopes that it will support other caregivers.
That is phenomenal. And that definitely is a journey in itself. Condolences go out to you, and definitely my heart too, just for everything that you've gone through. But the fact that you've pivoted to help people and really share your story is amazing. Well, you spent 20 years in corporate America before this pivot. How
Yes.
did those leadership skills, managing chaos, building systems, leading teams actually prepare you for caregiving?
It was fantastic. I didn't think at first that there would be any correlation because I felt just completely adrift and lost, not knowing what to do. But once I was able to calm down, which that's the key for caregivers, because when you're stressed, you can't think, you can't be creative because you're limiting the oxygen supply to the brain, and yet you're trying to come up with a creative solution. And so once I settled down, I realized my superpower is taking chaos and turning it into an organized way to handle things. And it really did help a lot because previously, as you mentioned, I'd been leading teams nationwide. I was traveling coast to coast, loving my job. My plan was to retire there. I had been with this particular company for 15 years. So I was well on my way to making my dreams come true. Turns out they were not God's dreams for me, which is great. His ways are so much better. So in the midst of that, I was on one coast when my dad accidentally took my mom's pills. My dad had low blood pressure. She had high blood pressure. He had to be rushed to the hospital. I live in Oklahoma, which is not on the coast. And then I was on the other coast when my mom passed out at the Daily Living Center and had to be rushed to the hospital. I couldn't get there real quickly. And so then the third straw, which I think maybe because I'm stubborn, maybe because it takes me a little while to give up on what I had planned. I was in Colorado and my mother-in-law locked herself out of her house in the middle of a snowstorm. She did not have the mental clarity to walk next door to the neighbors that she'd known for over 40 years. And instead, she sat in her car for 7 or 8 hours until her daughter got home from work. And we didn't know that she had Alzheimer's at that point in time. We just knew things were a little off. And so that was really a wake up call for me. That was okay, something has to change. Someone has to take care of them. And yes, I have siblings, and then my husband has siblings as well. And so there were plenty of other people, but it came to me. And with my parents, because I didn't trust anybody else to take care of them. I feel like I can do it better. I can make sure they're well taken care of. I'm very organized. So the organizational tools helped a lot in keeping all these medications straight, all the doctor's appointments straight, all because you're juggling so much as a caregiver. It's like managing that team all across the country because you have a lot of balls in the air and you got to keep them all in the air. So my management skills really did help a lot in caregiving.
Wow. Well, let me ask you, Deb, what surprised you most about transitioning from the boardroom to the bedside?
I think the most was how busy I was. I thought I
Mhm.
was gonna have not much to do, just, make sure they took their meds on time. That's not a big deal, we can handle that. But it's so much more than that, and I just didn't know. And, I never dreamt that I would be having to watch when they go to the bathroom because they might put Fixodent on their lips thinking it's lipstick. And my
Mhm.
mother-in-law did that. Thankfully, I got in there fast enough to scrub it off before it settled. And the things that they do, because the behavior is just so irrational, you wouldn't predict it. And drinking perfume, thinking that it's juice. I mean, who does that? So that was a big surprise to me. All the all the wild things that happened, which I've got a ton of stories of bizarre behavior that happened. And my dad, we looked for his teeth for a full day. I looked everywhere, all through the whole house, couldn't find his false teeth anywhere. I finally said, you know what? Let's sit down, we'll have a glass of tea, and we'll just think about where we haven't looked. And I reached into his ice maker and pulled out his teeth.
That is amazing. Fascinating. Well,
You
listen,
just
Deb,
gotta laugh.
you definitely gotta laugh. That's all
Mhm.
you can do to stop yourself from crying, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, you talked about your dad's aliens, the hallucinations that trace back to, what is it, sunlight on a white
Yeah,
mailbox. That's
yes.
an incredible story of detective work. What does that story teach us about how caregivers need to think differently?
Don't just accept that's the way it is. Dad was seeing aliens every evening, and the way I discovered it was when I went over to his house and he had a ball bat beating mom's recliner. Terrified me. What if mom had been in that recliner? But thankfully she wasn't. She was in the kitchen. But a lot of times we settle into, we'll say, oh, it's sundowners. We just write it off. We don't even take the time to find out what is causing that behavior because I was determined to stop the aliens. They were scaring dad, they were scaring mom, they were scaring me, to be quite honest. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I was very determined to stop this from happening. So I started watching everything and paying attention to everything. And it was the sun going down. And when the sun hit a certain point in the sky, it reflected off Dad's white mailbox, which made a starburst, which his brain translated as an alien. And then when the sun went lower, they disappeared. The starburst disappeared. So his mind said, they're tunneling under the ground to come in my house. And then the light would reappear on Mom's recliner because it was shining in through the kitchen window and hitting her recliner. And so that's where he thought they reappeared in the house and was beating it with the ball bat. So once I finally figured it out, which it took a long time to figure out, but once I finally figured it out, it was a simple fix. Close the blinds in the kitchen in the evening, shut the front door so that it's a solid wooden door, not a solid glass door. You get rid of the aliens, they're gone. So my word to caregivers is I challenge you to dig a little deeper and see what's behind that hallucination, because I find that there's usually something behind it, even if it's loneliness, if it's they're too tired, whatever. There's a lot of different things that cause it, but if we spend a little time, we can generally figure out and solve it for them.
That's true. That's definitely true. You gotta have a different thought process. Well,
Mhm.
the name The Purple Vine, what's the meaning behind it? Why purple, and what's the vine? Why the vine?
I'm glad you asked that. Purple, purple is the color for Alzheimer's. It's also my favorite color, so it works on two levels there. And then vine, because dementia is not linear. It twists and curves and goes back on itself. It changes direction. And I'm a gardener, so vine represented that to me. And then also from being a Christian, because the Bible says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me bears much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And so it works on all the different levels. So that's why I chose the purple vine um, to represent my company.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, that caregiver burnouts, is a crisis, that our healthcare system talks about but doesn't fully solve. What are the top two or three things you see caregivers doing or not doing that accelerate burnout the fastest?
Not taking time for themselves. And when I say that, I'm not standing out on a podium saying I have it all figured out and at all, because I learned because I hit caregiver burnout when I didn't even know the term. I'd never heard of it. I just knew that I was at the end of my rope. I couldn't go any further. I was emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted, just done. And that's that doesn't have to happen if we take some steps for ourselves along the way and if we learn some stress reduction strategies. And so that's why I created a whole thing around 5-minute fixes for stress relief, because in 5 minutes, you can lower your blood pressure, you can lower your anxiety, you can bring calm. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, when you bring that calm, then you can bring some clarity and you can solve your situation that you're trying to solve. So, taking a little bit of time for yourself is not selfish, because what I'd like to do is just get us to reframe our thoughts a little bit around that. When you're towards the end of your rope, are you truly a good caregiver? Or is your temper a little short? Are you a little irritated, irritable? You're not you're not at your best. So, in order to be at your best, you need to take a little bit of time for yourself. And that little bit of time is not selfish, it's making you a better caregiver.
Sure. How does technology play a role? Is it helping caregivers or sometimes making it worse?
Oh, wow. Both. Yeah, it makes it a lot better in many ways. Towards the end of my mom's journey, well, I'll back up. I cared for my dad until he passed in his home. He would not move in with me. He was very independent. He was going to live in his home and it was his way. That's it. So I had to work within that. So I got them to move close to me, just 2 miles away. And then my brother lived in Florida and was planning on moving back to Oklahoma. So I got him to just speed up that process a little bit, and so he and his wife asked dad if they could move into the guest room. Changes the dynamic, totally flips it. That's dad helping him. That's not him helping dad. And so then my brother and his wife were able to take care of the evening shift and I took care of the day shift. And so that made it manageable there. My mother-in-law, we moved in with us the last year of her life, and she passed in our guest room. My mom was a very social butterfly. She loved being around people, loved things, seeing and talking, visiting. And I had to put her into a memory care facility towards the end of her life, and it broke my heart. I felt like I let her down. Like, how can I do this? I cared for the other two at home. Why do I have to put her in a facility? But her doctor made the call for me because she outweighed me by 35 pounds and she was passing out. And so I'd put her on my shoulder and then the two of us would go down to the floor. And he said, "No, this is not sustainable. This is not a good thing. You need to put her in a facility." And so I toured lots of facilities and looked at everything. And this was in the middle of COVID. It was a nightmare. I'd had scheduled an appointment to visit a facility, and by the time I got there, they were closed because somebody had COVID, and so I couldn't tour. And so anyway, I finally found a wonderful facility to put her into, and, I sat in the parking lot and cried at having to take her in there because I had this whole preconceived notion of how it was gonna be. She's gonna feel isolated and alone, she's gonna feel like I let her down. Well, I was projecting, that's all the things I was feeling. My mom was super excited. She had a bunch of new friends. She had a
Yeah.
lot of people to hang out with. She had people that she could play balloon volleyball with. She loved it, and she became the door greeter for them because mom was cheerful throughout her entire journey. We were so blessed. She felt like she knew everybody, and she would walk up to you, total stranger, and, "Oh, hi, how are you?" and give you a hug. And so she was just so friendly and so welcoming. So that's what she made it her mission to do, is to welcome everybody as they came into the facility, and everybody loved her. And the thing that it did for me, it changed our relationship too. It let me be the daughter again. I didn't have to be the mean guy that was making her take her meds, that was making her eat her food, that was making her take a shower. I got to come in and enjoy her company, and we got to have fun together. And I played music and we do crazy dances and stuff. And so it really turned out to be a good thing, but I never saw it coming.
Wow, we never do, right? When we have to make those difficult choices and those difficult decisions, we always
Mhm.
make it about something other than what it actually is. And
Yes.
sometimes it really turns out to be the best thing. I have a family
Yeah.
member going through a similar situation. A lot of times just them having that social outlet, just them having an opportunity to have other people around because they can't get
Yes.
everything they need from you. They can't get all the
Right.
social stimuli and interaction that they need from just one person. So when they have more
Mhm.
people that they can interact with, it feels a lot less burdensome. And you
Mhm.
have an opportunity, they have an opportunity to just exercise so much more of themselves in that
Right.
environment. So I definitely have seen that, full
Yeah.
circle with my own aunt and my cousin. You teach that using humor is, a great way. That's a bold choice when you're dealing with dementia, grief,
Mhm.
exhaustion. Why is laughter not just okay, but actually necessary?
Oh, it's so very necessary because it releases endorphins into the system. It reduces your stress. It helps you reframe your focus and really reevaluate the way you're looking at things. And I do because I really think that laughter is how I got through. And laughter and, scripture. Those are the 2 things that help me the most. And so I had, several favorite scriptures that I would remember and that would lift me up because I remember a particular time I was scrubbing the bathroom floor for the 3rd time that day, and I was just crying. I was like, "I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. God, you gotta help me because I can't. I wanna walk out the door and leave is what I want to do." Not a good plan. And then I remembered, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I remembered I can do all things, insert, even scrub this bathroom floor for the 3rd time through Christ who gives me strength. And
Amen.
then, and Lamentations 3:22 and 23, his mercies are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. And what that means is that you start every day fresh. Don't carry over. Don't bring what happened yesterday into today. Today is a new day. So start every day fresh and give it a chance to go right. Don't already preset that it's going to go wrong. And then when things do go wrong, a lot of times it's because of our expectations. It's because we're expecting perfectionism. That is wrong. People are not perfect. They're not perfect without dementia. They're certainly not perfect when they have it. So we need to let go of that perfectionism and just learn to laugh. I took mom and my mother-in-law to go to the eye doctor. Oh gosh, that was fun. We got one fully dressed, and then I went to get the other one dressed, and while I was getting her dressed, the first one, I forgot to remove the pajamas from the room, so she saw the pajamas and thought it was time to put her pajamas on, so she changed back into her pajamas. So we're like, I finally but you learn through that. So what do you wind up doing? I'm sitting one, change one, get her fully dressed, sit her on the couch, change the other one right there in the living room, and have so that I can tell the other one, nope, nope, keep that on, sit there, let's get you dressed, set them on the couch. So we made it. We actually made it to the appointment on time. There's something. That's a win right there. We made it on time. So we need to celebrate that. But then I glanced down and my mom is wearing two different shoes. And I thought, how did I do this? And then I went, wait, no, stop that negative thinking. This is great. We made it on time. They both have their teeth. They both are wearing bras. They're fully dressed. This is a win. Who cares if she has mismatched shoes? It doesn't matter. And it didn't. So we just laughed about it. I'm like, oh well, nobody's perfect.
That's an amazing story. And you got to make lemonade out of the lemons, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, listen, the book, The Caregiver's Advocate, brought together 21 experts from 4 countries. What does it tell you that caregivers burnout is a worldwide problem? Not just in America, and it's not just an American problem, right?
Right. That's why I gathered an international staff because when the publisher came to me and asked me if I'd like to be lead author on a collaboration series, I said, sure. I don't know what that means, but why not? And because I'm one of those jump off the cliff and learn how to, how to fly on the way down. So she came to me and I said, sure, okay. And so as I thought about it, I was like, this is not just a problem for America. This is an international problem. So maybe my friends in Israel know something that I don't know. And because I have a memory care expert friend in Israel, and maybe my doctor friend in the UK knows something that we don't know. And maybe my friends in Canada know things. So I just gathered people from globally to come together and share one chapter of something that they wish they would have known at the beginning of the journey. And I was hoping that it would hit number one in at least one category. That was my goal. Number one in one category. Oh my goodness. It hit number one in all 6 categories of the US, number one in Canada, number one in Australia, top 50 in the UK. Did fantastic. Number one Amazon bestseller, new release. So I was just so excited and over the moon because people are hungry for this information. And so then people were asking, well, why didn't you write about this? And why didn't you write about that? And I'm going, because it's one book. You can't get everything that a caregiver needs to know in one book. So we did volume 2. And volume 2, I had about 4 returning authors, and then I gathered a bunch of new ones and gathered them again from around the world. And excuse me, it did fantastic too. It went to number one in the UK this time, number one in all 6 categories in the US, and number one in Canada and number one Amazon new release. And then it also has won 2 international literary awards that I'm so proud of. So it won the International Impact Book of the Year for 2025. National, no, and then it won Global Literary Book of the Year for aging. So I'm just so excited and so proud of those because people everywhere are thirsty for actionable, useful information. And that's all I deal in. If you go to my website, The Purple Vine, what you will see is real life. You will not see somebody lecturing to you. If you're reading through the blog, you're going to see, hey, I did this. This was not smart. Don't do it. You're going to see a lot of different ways to handle situations because I have 2 brothers and a sister. We each have different relationships with our parents, and we each handled situations differently. And so I put all of those into my first book, The Caregiving, How to Hold On While Letting Go, because it's different. And then even if it's the same, what works this morning might not work this afternoon. So as a caregiver, you need an entire toolbox to draw from. And I think that's what makes the Caregivers Advocate series so popular. One of the things is because you're learning a lot of different actionable things that you can do. You're not learning mindset, you learn a little bit about that, but it's not focused on one specific topic. It's covering a lot of different things and it's telling you what you can do in your home or at your place of business to change it, to make it better. And that's what makes it so successful. And right now we're working on volume 3. So I'm so excited. And I have a gentleman from Nigeria joining us for this one that I'm super excited about, and then again, all the different countries have people joining as well. So I expect it to do fantastic too, because it's just such needed information.
Absolutely. And congratulations on all of those accolades. That's amazing. And
Thank you.
volume 3, I'm sure is going to be just as great. Did any contributor from outside the US offer a perspective that genuinely surprised or challenged you?
Uh, Absolutely. I mentioned my memory care expert friend. Her name is Rena Yudkowsky in
Mhm.
Israel. And I love her because she just talks very plain to me. We've known each other for about 4 years and done summits together and some different things. And I was talking to her one day and I said, you know what? I think I'm losing it. I mean, I was driving down the road, I was going to a mall, and all of a sudden I realized I was driving to the wrong mall. And I said, I can't believe I did that. And she said, well, hold up. What were you doing when you were driving? And I said, well, I was talking to my sister on the phone. And she goes, "Okay. And what did you do when you realized you were going to the wrong mall?" And I said, "Well, I took the exit, turned around, went back and course corrected." And she said, "Okay." And she said, "There's nothing wrong with your brain. You don't have a memory problem. What you have is a lack of paying attention problem." Girl, she hit me right on the head. I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Because I recognized the problem, but I was distracted. So I wasn't paying attention was the deal. And then I knew how to fix it. When you have dementia, you don't know how to fix it. You don't remember there is a problem. Certainly don't know how to fix the problem. So I was like, okay, yep. So
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
that's good stuff. That is amazing. Well, you mentioned possibly moving into group coaching so caregivers can support each other. What would the community look like in your ideal world?
man, if caregivers knew that they were not alone and that they're not alone in your feelings, you're not having an isolated experience. Someone else has been through it before, no matter how bizarre. Someone else has been through it too. And we can learn and support each other, learn from each other's mistakes. That's why I share so openly the mistakes that I made so that
Mhm.
you won't do it. You don't have to go through the same mess that I did. You can find your own mistakes. There's plenty out there. And so just a loving, supporting environment where people, no judgment, just come as you are, be open to say, you know what, I blew it today. Because we all did. There is no perfect person. We all blow it. I yelled at my mom once and then I cried because I yelled at my mom because I
Yeah.
knew, she'd ask me the same thing, ask me the same question like 30 times. And I finally was like, Mom, stop. And that was so wrong because I'm human. So what did I do is I looked at that and said, okay, how can I solve this? How can I stop this from happening? So distraction is a wonderful tool in that, you just distract them, get them off that loop that's going around and around and around. Break them off that loop and get them on a different one. It'll give you at least a break for a while. So I learned a lot of ways to break the loop because that was mom's big thing. And when you've done, she probably did that for 12 years, but the loops kept getting tighter and
Mm.
smaller. And it got to the point where I had just answered the question and she was asking it again. And you're just like, no.
Yeah, that's tough. That's definitely tough. I think anybody who's had any family member that has suffered from dementia or Alzheimer's have experienced the loop, and the loop sometimes is never ending. It's like
Yes.
soon as I finish answering that question, here it comes again. And,
Yeah.
it's like, do I answer it a different way? Do I get
Yeah.
frustrated? Do I just lean in and, just take it for what it is? So
You know
it's
what?
tough, to just really figure out what the right response is and to not lose your.
You know what my little brother did? I have to tell you this. My little brother had a great solution for it because he's like, we were talking amongst us siblings, and my older brother was like, just say yeah, just ignore her. Say yeah, every now and then. That's all you got to do. And she's happy because she thinks you're listening. Don't even listen. That's his solution. My solution, I answer her every single time with the right answer. My sister would sometimes just make crazy stuff up and say anything, tell her all kinds of bizarre stuff. She made it a challenge for her to see what kind of crazy answer she could come up with. My younger brother had, I think, a really good solution, which was anyway, you judge for yourself. He would buy her an ice cream cone and hand her the ice cream cone. And he's like, Mom, eat your ice cream. Your ice cream's going to melt. You better eat your ice cream. So she couldn't ask him the questions because she was eating her ice cream.
Oh my goodness, that is cute. That's a great distraction. Ice cream always works,
Ice
right?
cream is great. Yes, she loved
Cream
it.
is great. Well, listen, Deb, how do you see technology, telehealth, AI apps fitting into the future of caregiver support?
I think the thing that helped me so much with mom was that when I had to put her in the facility, and I was so upset and so worried because someone else is taking care of my mom. And so I put cameras in her room, and you have to position the cameras a certain way to protect everyone else's privacy and all that. But I put one camera facing straight at her bed so that I could just see her and watch her, make sure she was all right. It helped several times because I woke up at 2 a.m. one time to check on mom because I was so used to doing that. And she
Mhm.
had actually fallen out of the bed and nobody knew. And and so I called up there and said, "Hey, she's on the floor. You need to go check her." And they were like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know, She was in bed when they did the rounds." And I know that's true, but things happen. So the thing is you got to work as a team, work together. And what I saw is that sometimes a healthcare worker would feel like I put the camera in to spy on them. That's not what it was about. What it was about, I caught some of the most wonderful moments that we would not have even known about without that camera. And that's mom, who at this point could not even say a complete sentence, but she's standing in her room and she just so happened to be facing the camera and she's singing gospel hymns. I just cried. And it's like, and I saved that video and I shared that with family and friends everywhere. I would not have had that or known about that if it hadn't been for the camera. So, and telehelp is great because getting your loved one out is a chore in itself. It's stressful for them, it's stressful for you. By the time you get there, you are just so stressed out that if you didn't write it down or put it in your notes app, you probably don't remember the questions you were going to ask. And I use that notes app all the time on my phone to write down what I needed. And that's also why I created a big journal called Write to Remember, because I wanted things that I wanted to remember. And I wrote in that journal those funny things, some of those stories that I told you, I wrote in the journal so that I wouldn't forget. And so that other family members would know and would hear about that and laugh about that because you're surrounded by so much negativity. It's easy to get sucked into the negativity. That's why you have to fight against it and find the funny and laugh about it and remember the good. Remember, I mean, yes, my mother-in-law threw things at me. She cussed like a sailor, and she was a little preacher's wife that never said a bad word, never said anything about anybody. And here she is doing all this bizarre stuff. But the thing that I wrote down that I really remember is that one day when I pulled up her pants for her, and then we were facing each other face to face, and she put her arms around me and she said, "Thank you, love." That blessed my heart because I knew what she was saying. She had that little moment of clarity and was thanking me for helping her, and she loved me, and I knew she loved me. And I knew it was just the behavior. So we have to remember to separate the behavior from the person. That was not my mother in law that was cussing me out. That was
Mhm.
not my mother in law that was throwing things at me. She never would have done either of those things. That was Alzheimer's. That
Wow.
was a disease.
Wow. That is phenomenal. Well, you said it's okay to get knocked down, but it's not okay to stay down. If you could leave one message with every family or caregiver listening today, what would it be?
I think it would be, don't try to do it alone. Caregiving is not a solo journey. And again, I tried to do it alone. I learned the hard way that's not what you do. You're better in community. It takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village or more to care for someone with a terminal disease. So ask for and get help. People want to help you. They oftentimes just don't know how. They don't know what it is. One thing that I learned was my little brother again, because he's smacked me. He said, "What can I do to help?" And I said, "Nothing, it's fine. I got it." Because, I got my Wonder Woman cape on. I can handle everything myself. Was not true. I needed help. And he said, "How do you feel when you help other people?" And I said, "Good." And he said, "Right. It makes you feel good, doesn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, it does." And he said, "Don't steal my blessing. Let me help." Wow. That is just like, oh my goodness. Okay. So what I started doing was I took an index card and I wrote down all the things that would be helpful if someone did for me. Doesn't have to be caregiving. Doesn't have to be related to that. Could be mow the yard. What do you need? What would help you? Cook supper one night a week. Pick up prescriptions. Whatever it is, write it all down. Put it in your purse. And then when someone says, "What can I do to help you?" you whip out that little card and hand it to them. And you say, "Is there anything on there that you would be willing to do?" That way, you're not assigning a task that they don't like. You're not asking them to do laundry when they hate it. You're just saying, "Is there anything that you want to do?" They already said they want to help you. So let them help and don't steal their blessing.
That's phenomenal. Debbie, I definitely, in closing, want to share a brief story with you. One, I just want you to know that this conversation has impacted me greatly. One, because you're such a phenomenal woman and you've done some phenomenal things, and I can't wait to dig into some of the books that you've written. But briefly, I just wanted to share a story as you were talking about your mother-in-law. My grandmother-in-law, also suffered dementia, and she would stay in those loops, over and over. But there would be moments of clarity, as you described. And in those moments of clarity, she would go back into who she really was at the core, which was, she was a pastor. So she could pray like nobody's business. She could preach like nobody's business. In her, this woman, her last days, her last weeks, if you were in her presence, this woman would pray. She would pray for the whole family. And when I tell you, not no like, itty bitty prayer. I mean, I'm talking about big prayer. And,
Oh,
a prayer that would touch your soul and you would feel God in the conversation and you would know that he was there in the midst. So I say that to say, those brief moments of clarity that they get, can definitely impact your life. And, me myself, I suffered a brain aneurysm, survived
oh,
that, 7 years ago. And not being my complete self, not having or feeling like I had the brain capacity that I once had, and even having to be able to accept my new normal. I'm in the process right now of writing my book, which has taken me 7 years to really get
huh?
there. And I think I'm
Mhm.
about 8 chapters in now. So but really, I want it to be a survival story that helps other people that may have suffered some traumatic brain injury in some form or another to let them know you get knocked down, but you get back up. So
Yes.
it's just amazing just how many things are aligned in our conversation and really how much insight, you have. I just definitely want to encourage you to keep getting the word out, keep doing this great work because even my aunt is going to benefit from hearing this podcast. My cousin, actually, my aunt has dementia and she just recently had to make that tough decision and stop being a caregiver and, put her into a facility that could support her in a better way. And just like you explained, my aunt is so happy to have so many people that she gets to interact with. She's like the ringleader. Everybody comes and they want to hear her talk because she's like, she
Mhm.
has, a lot of conversation that's pretty comical to a lot of people. So people
Uh-huh.
like to, come here, come meet, Miss Vida, come hear her, talk, and
Yeah.
she talks about all kinds of stuff, stuff that
Yeah.
as a niece or as her child, we'd be like, oh mom, don't say that, or oh auntie, don't say that. But people get such a kick out of, I mean, she
Yes.
tells you about her past life and her boyfriend or her ex, it's just crazy. But I mean, and
Yeah.
she could get a little raunchy, but it's comical nonetheless. And
Uh-huh.
really, it's just a moment, a snapshot of, who she is and, what things were important to her. So you have to let them have that grace and that flexibility to just
Yes.
be who they are and allow the person that, that they are to shine and not stifle them. And yeah, if
Yes.
they're in a loop, let them be in a loop.
Yeah.
You know, enjoy the time that you get with them, the extended time that you get with your loved one, the way they, show up on this earth because their days are numbered. They don't have a lot more time, or we don't have a lot of time with them. So I definitely want to thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and feature you.
Wow. I'm always amazed. I mean, God is so good. How interesting that our stories align so much. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
That's only God. And I don't know. I let go of perfectionism. And you're right. We need to not judge who they are because they're doing different things. They're saying different things. My mom told everybody that we went to high school together. I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know how that timeline works, but okay, just go with it. It doesn't matter. What does it matter?
Mhm.
It doesn't." And that's the thing. We get stuck in everything has to be just so. And so I think dementia is really, in some ways, I mean, it's freeing for them because they'll say, my mom did that too with all the stories and all the things. And, she dated Kenny Chesney. And I'm like, Mom, he's like 40 years younger than you. I don't, and you were married to dad. It doesn't, you don't do that. Don't correct them. Just let them have fun. Let them go with it. And you will be happier and they will be happier if you stop correcting them. Just agree. Just go along. I think the thing that blessed my heart the most was when they'd have that moment of clarity and just tell me that they love me. That really stuck home to me. So many crazy situations come through my mind, of things that things that happened and then you're like, this is so bizarre. But but then you look back on it and go, well, it's only bizarre because I'm applying my standards to it. I'm in their world and what they're experiencing. It's not bizarre, it's perfectly normal. So stop judging and let them be. And my mom taught me to dance crazy and not care because she wanted to dance. We didn't dance. We were raised, I mean, it's like the 11th commandment, thou shalt not dance. And so we did not dance. My mom got dementia, she started dancing. And so I'm
Mm.
like, "Okay, go with it. That's fine." And so she
What
wanted me to dance with her, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is awkward. I feel really weird, but okay." And she drugged me right up to the front of the room in front of everybody and is dancing. And I'm like, I was mortified at first. I was embarrassed. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I want to hide." And then realized, you know what? She's having a great time. Join her where she's at and have fun and forget about the rest. And that's the thing, we have to step into their reality because they can't step into ours anymore. So,
absolutely. Deb, one book every caregiver should read besides yours.
mm, wow, you ask good questions. Like, wow. Let's see. There are several. It depends on what their needs are. The 36-hour day is a real popular one that's been around for many, many, many years, and it covers a lot of different topics. But there are a lot of books. I've got a bunch of them over there on the shelf. Caregiver's Advocate, volumes 1 and 2. There's the last chapter is an entire resource chapter. And so what it tells you there, it'll tell you podcasts that support caregivers. It will tell you different books to read. It'll tell you websites to go to. All that information is right there because it depends on where you're at in your journey as to what you need. There are some really good ones about dealing with grief and the end stages. And we've got a death doula who is writing about when they don't need food anymore.
Mm.
And it's because we try to push food, and quite often they do that in the facility too. They kept trying to push food on mom, and she didn't need food at that point. Her body was shutting down. She was dying, and so she'd wind up choking. But it depends on what part of the journey you're in as to which book you need. But there are lots of helpful books out there right now.
I'm asking you morning routine, coffee or chaos? Which one?
Pepsi.
Okay, I like it.
I'm Pepsi. I don't like coffee. And you know what's funny in that? My mother never drank coffee. She hated coffee. She forgot who I was, but she remembered she hated coffee. It's
Wow.
bizarre.
All right. And as we close, Deb, finish this sentence. A caregiver taught me that I am.
Enough.
Mm,
Enough. You're doing the best that you can, and that is enough. Always try to learn better, to do better, but where you're at right now is where you need to be. You're where you're called to be. It's not a small task, it's huge.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Deb. It has been a privilege and a pleasure and an honor to get a chance to have this conversation. Deb's website is thepurplevine.com. Email is deb@thepurplevine.com. Books on Amazon, just search Deb D. Moss Compton,
And
and
they're
you'll
also
be able
on my
to find them.
website,
And they're also on her website.
and I'll
So
sign it if you order it there.
absolutely. So you definitely want to get them on her website. So thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.